To bail on the Zoom real quickly to anybody that was in the Zoom. Sorry. We're going to get right on with this. Let me see, where's my live stream? Here we go. Because we're having a community sale after this. Hang on for one moment. There we go. Okay, so let me just put this into live chat, and before I start, I'm just going to put our redirect on so I don't forget that. Okay, so a few things going on. The woman you see on the screen is a mother in Bronx, New York, believed to have Munchausen's by proxy, and she nearly killed her 4-year-old daughter because she gave her seizure medication she didn't need to take her to the hospital 190 times in just a few years. Now, the woman you see on the screen is Tajneh Brown, 23, and she was charged on Friday with attempted murder, attempted manslaughter, and first-degree assault over the treatment of her daughter. She's accused of poisoning her child and making 190 trips to the hospital to seek unnecessary drugs. She was charged on Friday. Authorities believe Brown suffers from Munchausen's by proxy, which is a disorder where people make up or deliberately produce symptoms of illness in someone they are looking after, usually a child, and usually for attention. The incident started on May 2nd when she brought her daughter, then age 3, into the Montefiore Medical Center and claimed she was on seizure medication and needed more. She made repeated statements that the child needed the meds that got the staff to administer more doses. Hospital workers realized the young girl had toxic levels of drugs in her blood. She was being poisoned by these medications. And the mother was told about the overdose, and the girl was taken off the medication. The child was still with the mother in the hospital, and her drug levels went down before allegedly spiking back up. Brown is thought to have continued to discreetly administer the meds to life-threatening levels. Hospital staff then called the Bronx District Attorney's Office, who alerted the New York City Police Department. The investigation determined that the mother had taken her daughter to a variety of different health providers 190 times in order to get her daughter the same harmful drug prescriptions. She's told the same story to doctors and nurses. And Harold Williams, who lived in the same building as the mother and child, said, "I don't know her. That's a shame. Any baby being abused by their parents is horrible. You've got to be cautious. People with problems should seek help and get proper help so things like this won't happen." The mother has no criminal record and was granted supervised release with an electronic monitor at her arraignment on Friday in the Bronx Criminal Court. So, thankfully, the child was saved there, and there's another, there's a Munchausen's by proxy case there, so, yeah, not good. Not good. Okay. I am just looking at something. Matthew Perry from Friends has passed away in a hot tub. We'll look into that too. Let's see what's going on. Let's check that out, okay? Parent drowning. Today, terrible picture of him that they have here. So, best known for playing Chandler Bing on Friends, he was found dead at a Los Angeles area home on Saturday. Law enforcement sources reported this, and that he was found in a jacuzzi at the home, and no drugs were found on the scene. A spokesperson for the Los Angeles Police Department said that officers responded to a call at Perry's address regarding the death of a male in his 50s, but would not confirm the deceased's identity. There was no foul play involved, according to TMZ, and their sources said first responders were called to the residence for a cardiac arrest. Hang on one second. Let me do this. Put up a better picture there. Okay. He was born August 19th, 1969 in Williamstown, Massachusetts. He was raised in Ottawa, Canada. He attended elementary school with the Prime Minister, the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. His mother, Suzanne Morrison, was a journalist and press secretary to Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau, Justin's father. His stepfather is Dateline's Keith Morrison. Oh my gosh, I never knew that. And Keith Morrison has been on all day. Keith Morrison was just on because Jimmy's been listening to Perry's stepfather. Did you guys know that? His stepfather is Keith Morrison. I did not know that, or if I knew that, I did not remember that. His father, John Bennett, and almost like Benet, John Bennett Perry, was an actor and model. The younger Perry even starred in an episode on his dad's cop show, 240 Robert. I never heard of that show. In 1979. Perry moved to Los Angeles as a teenager. He landed a few TV guest spots. He was on Boys Will Be Boys, I don't even remember that show, and played Chaz Russell, reoccurring, from 1987 to 1988. Roles on Growing Pains and Sydney followed, but his big break came in 1994 with NBC's iconic sitcom Friends. Perry played the sarcastic, commitment-phobic Chandler Bing for 10 seasons. He landed an Emmy nomination in 2002. In a book, Friends Till the End, he said he was 24 when he got on the show. I'll be 34 when it's over, and those are really important years in someone's life. So to do it all in public was difficult. At first you have this wave of I'm famous, and this is exactly what I've wanted my whole life, but then you go through the whole recluse stage where you think, I wish everybody would stop staring at me, and then you eventually, hopefully, get through all that. You find things in your life that are grounding, like your family and good friends. Despite his success, Perry struggled with addiction behind the scenes, seeking treatment in 1997 and 2001. He told Britain's BBC Radio 2 in 2016 that he didn't remember filming seasons 3 through 6 of Friends. Wow. In 2013, on a People cover story, the actor admitted to abusing alcohol and Vicodin, which a doctor had prescribed to him after a 1997 jet ski accident. And I quote him saying, I had a big problem with alcohol and pills and I couldn't stop. Eventually things got so bad that I couldn't hide it, and then everybody knew. Then something clicked, and he founded Perry House, a men's sober living facility in his old Malibu Beach home. And I quote him again, saying, "The interesting reason that I can be so helpful to people now is that I screwed up so often. It's nice for people to see that somebody who once struggled in their life is not struggling anymore." Back in 2015, he was awarded for his advocacy by the treatment center Phoenix House. And then he said, "You can't have a drug problem for 30 years and then expect to have it solved in 28 days. Okay, when Friends ended, he struggled to find another small screen hit. His next starring vehicle was Aaron Sorkin's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, but that aired for just 1 year between 2006 and 2007 for just 22 episodes. He co-created Mr. Sunshine in 2011, but ABC canceled that after just 9 episodes. His NBC comedy Go On ran for 1 season in 2013. Next, he starred alongside Thomas Lennon on CBS's The Odd Couple reboot for 3 seasons from 2015 to 2017. Never heard that, but I didn't watch TV in those years. Didn't even know about that. Perry also worked on a play, The End of Longing in London, and that was in 2016. His movie credits include Fools Rush In, The Whole 9 Yards, Serving Sarah, and 17 Again. So, yeah. And ironically, Adam Rich, another sitcom star from 8 Is Enough, died at 54 as well. Not now, but he died, I think, a couple years ago. Okay. So, let's go on. Okay. All right, so let's talk about where this main shooter was found. Okay. So, a Maine sheriff said he sent an awareness alert to all law enforcement agencies in the state in September after the Army Reserve tipped his department about Robert Card's threats about his base and fellow soldiers, but deputies were unable to find him. Robert Card was found dead from self-inflicted gunshot wounds 2 days after he shot dead 18 people in 2 different locations in Lewiston, Maine, and wounded 17 others. The county sheriff, Joel Mary, said he sent deputies to Card's Bowdoin home when they came back empty-handed, prompting him to send out the statewide alert. "We couldn't locate him. He didn't remember if there was any follow-up because he didn't have any reports in front of him." The police chief, Jack Clements, where the Army Reserve base is located, said that his department added extra patrols for about 2 weeks, but the guy never showed up. He said the alert that Mary sent out was just some generic thing that came out saying, hey, you know, we've had some report that this guy's made some veiled threats about his department, was never notified of a problem by the base. Military officials declined to confirm whether the tip sent was new or related to the threats that he reportedly made at a training exercise in New York in July. Those threats landed Card in the mental health facility for 2 weeks. The New York State Police was called to the training site near West Point on July 16th by commanders of the Army Reserve's 304th Infantry Regiment, which were concerned about Card's erratic behavior and threats to other members of the military unit during the training exercise. And that landed him at the Keller Army Community Hospital at West Point, where he remained for 2 weeks. The state police did not respond to the AP's request for reports or possible body camera footage on the incident. The agency did say it was an active investigation in a statement on Friday before Card was found dead. A spokesperson declined to comment on Saturday. The FBI said that it neither had nor received any tips about Card prior to the massacres that were carried out Wednesday night. The agency said that its instant background system was not provided with or in possession of any information that would have prohibited Card from a lawful firearm purchase. Maine does not have a red flag law that would allow law enforcement to remove firearms from someone who is deemed a clear threat. It does have a more limited yellow flag law, which allows police to petition a judge to remove firearms if medical personnel deems someone's a threat. Maine officials said Robert Card bought all of his weapons legally. Some he bought within days of carrying out the massacre in Lewiston, Maine. Just in Time Recreation Bowling Alley was one of those locations, and Shemengee's Bar and Grill. A long rifle was found inside his vehicle, which he abandoned at a boat ramp after the shootings. 2 more guns were found with his body inside a box trailer near a recycling center about a mile from the boat ramp. So he was found in one of those semis, and that's that. Okay, let's see. There's another thing. I want to talk about McNabb. If you remember the McNabb case, we covered the trial. It was the cousins, and the daughter was taken out in a duffel bag and put in the woods. You remember that trial if you've been around a long time with us? Well, they're both asking for a new trial. So let's see what's going on there. McNabb's. That was a crazy case. If you... Okay. Hold on a minute. Don't play with me here. There's the news playing with me. They better not be. Hang on. We talked about the doomsday mother that fled with her 16, almost 17-year-old son, that he was found, and the mother and her brother were arrested. That was crazy. This is crazy. What is going on here? Now I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. In the Twilight Zone. Okay, I'll go on the next thing in a minute. Okay. So this mother right here, let's do this first. I'll figure it out. I don't know what the heck happened to what I was going to go over. A body was discovered on Saturday in Tennessee, and it's been identified as an Oklahoma woman who was arrested days earlier for repeatedly calling 911. The Shelby County Sheriff's Office said Haley Silas, 22, was found deceased on a barge in the Mississippi River by crew members conducting a routine inspection. Silas's partner said that Silas was traveling with a man in Oklahoma 4 days before she was found dead. You know what that just reminded me of about the Mississippi River? Anybody that's been with us a very, 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 very long time, remember we had some case, and it was around the Mississippi River or something, or this lady was showing us a big snake. I think that's what it was, something like that. Do you remember they took us on and they were in a truck? It was like her and her husband, and they took us along this river or something, and then I think something had to do with a big snake, a big giant snake. Remember that? I remember her taking us along a river, and I remember seeing like chain link fencing. She was driving in there. I just got a flashback of that as we just talked about that, but if you remember that, let me know. By crew members conducting a routine inspection, Silas's partner said that she was traveling with a man in Oklahoma 4 days before she was found dead. She was arrested in West Memphis, Arkansas on October 15th, and she was arrested for repeatedly calling 911. She had called 911 from a gas station near the Southland Casino, and she asked police to give her a ride out of town because she was scared. She allegedly told the responding police officers that she was having a panic attack and that she wanted to talk to her parents and that she was scared. She was taken to the police station in handcuffs, and she asked to be taken to a psychiatric ward 3 days before she was found dead. Silas pleaded guilty to communicating a false alarm, a charge similar to filing a false report, and she was sentenced to time served. Despite the series of events, Shelby County Police say foul play is not suspected in her death. Her cause of death is not yet known. On a GoFundMe page that Silas's sister made, says Silas had a history of addiction. I don't know. Sounds like she was going through a break there. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, and I wanted to talk real quick, just to give a recap about Adelson. I don't know why I can't, and now I feel like I'm really as I thought I saw this about Chris McNabb. Hold up, I'm gonna sneeze again. I'm gonna sneeze again. Okay. Chris McNabb, let me see here. Well, he appealed in 2022 and had his conviction upheld. And I don't know if he's asking again. He was sentenced to life without parole plus 10 years. But then I think he's appealing again. I don't know, let me see. I don't don't know why I'm getting this.
Crafted to wear and endure.
Oh my gosh, be quiet with the ads. So he was convicted on 8 counts. I don't know. I may take that out because I had something and now I don't see
Designed
it.
with the highest precision.
Be quiet. All right, let's go to Adelson. I'm going to recap the trial. Hopefully you've seen it. Hopefully you're watching it because it's very good. But I'm going to recap what's gone on so far. Okay. So, Wendy, I guess I should do. Should I do day 1, day 2? Okay. Sorry, because we moved the boats in today. I took a nice boat ride. I hope my back doesn't go out with Jimmy and I and the kids and their friends. They did a couple of boats and we did the rest. Let's see here. Okay. All right, let me get a picture of Charlie Adelson up here. Charlie Adelson, let's get your picture up here. The dentist. The dentist on trial for the murder of his brother-in-law, Dan Markel. I have no doubt he is going to be found. He actually looks like he needs a striped suit, and he could be in a production of Beetlejuice, okay? Anyway, he is, this is a 9-year-old case, and his whole family, as far as I'm concerned, is involved in this and needs to be charged, especially his sister Wendy. So we'll see. Okay. Let's get to the day 1 because it's started Thursday. So if you haven't followed it, you need to watch it over the weekend because you have to watch Wendy. But they had opening statements, and they were done by Sarah Dugan, prosecutor. She laid out the timeline of Rivera and Garcia. Those are the 2 hired hitmen. How they traveled from South Florida near Miami to Tallahassee to kill Dan Markel 9 years ago, July 18th, 2014. They shot up a image that included Charlie Adelson, his wife, his sister, their parents, and the girlfriend, Catherine Magbanua, who is the one that connected the Adelsons to the hitmen Rivera and Garcia. Now, Sigfrido Garcia is the baby daddy to Catherine Magbanua's children. Catherine Magbanua is the at one time girlfriend of Charlie Adelson. Charlie Adelson goes through girls like crazy, and another one of his girlfriends took this stand on Friday, and wow. Yeah, I won't say anything about that. Anyway, he cycled through them pretty fast, but Catherine Magbanua is the one that connected him to these hitmen. And they actually made 2 trips. Okay, they tried to kill Dan Markel on June 4th, my birthday, ironically, and that always has a lot of true crime things happening, but that wasn't successful, and they did kill Dan Markel on the 18th of July. And so Magbanua and Sigfrido Garcia had an on-again, off-again relationship history, which the prosecutor laid out. And let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to move through this stuff here. I was trying to get another picture up for you guys, but my computer is locking up. So the reason that they were hiring these hitmen was because Wendy Adelson had moved out of the house when Dan Markel was out on a business trip. She moved herself out of the marital home, okay? And then she wanted to move to Miami to be near her parents, and her husband, Dan Markel, did not want that. They were in Tallahassee. And so prosecution says, Dan Markel was a problem, and this is why Charlie Adelson and Donna Adelson, the mother, but Charlie solicited for the hitman so he could help his sister, right? And so anyway, the prosecutor told the jury that it'll be up to y'all to decide, and she alleges that Donna, the mother, Charlie, and Catherine Magbanua spoke in code during phone calls. She referred to them as conspirators, as the jury you will all interpret and decide what they're actually talking about in these calls, she said. She explained that much of the FBI recordings had been difficult to hear because of the background noise. So what they did was they did this thing called the bump. And one of the hitmen who was on the stand Friday, Luis Rivera, has made a deal. He got a 19-year prison sentence for his part in this because he's going to testify, and he's testified in these trials because Catherine Magbanua has already received a life sentence. Sigfrido Garcia, he's the trigger man, has also received a life sentence. And the guy that's testifying and got the deal is getting 19 years. And I will say that when he came into the courtroom and was testifying, you could just see that Charlie Adelson was thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's got 19 years and I'm going away for life. Yeah. And what can I do to make this guy shut up? Because he's supposed to come back to court on Monday and for the cross-examination. So once Rivera was convicted on something else and in prison, undercover officers they were putting pieces together. It took a long time to get information, but they needed to catch Charlie Adelson and Catherine Magbanua talking and stuff. So they did this maneuver called the bump, where they bumped into Donna Adelson outside of the dental office, and they basically told her that Luis Rivera is going to talk. So it was some kind of thing like, you better give some money, and I think it was $5,000, or this person's going to talk, in order to get these people talking. And when they started to talk, when Charlie went to a restaurant with Catherine Magbanua, there was an undercover investigator that was there, and he had this recording equipment. But as the prosecutor says, the FBI recordings were very difficult to hear because of the background noise in the restaurant. That was back then. Since then, software, stuff like that has come a long way, and they were able to clean up this recording so that you just hear Charlie and Katie Magbanua. Then the defense attorney that gave the opening statement is Rushbaum. And he said he had great respect for the prosecutors and law enforcement, and he has an admiration for their efforts after the murder of Dan Markel. But his whole thing, he said 2 crimes happened the day Dan Markel died. But he said Charlie Adelson had nothing to do with Wendy and Dan Markel's divorce. He said that Wendy confided in her brother about marital issues with Dan, and he listened but told his sister she had to pave her own path. He said that Charlie was a little selfish, and he was very focused on his own career and therefore was working long hours at the time that Dan Markel was murdered, and said they were brother and sister, but they weren't super close. This is all lies. Said that Charlie Adelson was a workaholic. He said that he would talk on the phone as he traveled between dental practices, and during those drives, he would speak with his mother and his girlfriend. He said that Wendy followed a different path, and he explained she attended prestigious universities and fell in love with Dan Markel. And Charlie and Wendy loved each other, but they didn't talk very often, he alleged. Yeah, sure. The Adelson parents wanted to give Dan Markel $1 million to let Wendy move to Miami, the defense attorney said, but Wendy never accepted that offer from her parents or extended it to her ex, a mother-in-law, a grandma with a lot of emotion. Of course, her emails were crazy. He said the family took it hard when Wendy's motion to move the children to Miami was denied. And just 17 days before the murder, he says Garcia threatened Charlie Adelson and tried to run the periodontist off the road. He said that there's a call. Garcia threatens to kill Charlie Adelson if he continues to date Katie Magbanua. Now remember, Garcia is the baby daddy. Okay? He called the Adelson Institute, which is where that's the family's dental practice, and got a voicemail. But the voicemail had an in case of emergency phone line that connected to Harvey's phone, said the defense attorney Rushbaum. It's what broke the case. The only call between the Adelsons and Garcia was when Garcia called Harvey Adelson, Charlie's dad. He said that call was important, and the prosecution used it to establish a connection between the Adelsons and Markel's murder. Referring to Garcia, Rushbaum said Katie Magbanua was the love of his life, and Garcia hated Charlie Adelson. He said Garcia isn't the bad guy. Charlie Adelson never met Sigfrido Garcia officially. That's what the defense is claiming. But over time, Katie Magbanua wanted a deeper relationship. Charlie Adelson didn't want that. As their relationship persisted, Charlie learned of his girlfriend's ex, but they didn't get to know each other. At first, their relationship was casual. Charlie Adelson and Katie Magbanua met in late 2013 at a dental practice. According to Rushbaum, he treated her well. They kept it casual, and Adelson liked that because he wanted to focus on his career. He said when Charlie Adelson first heard the news that his ex-brother-in-law was shot, his first reaction was, "Are Wendy and the boys okay?" Rashbaum said we're getting to the second crime. Charlie Adelson. Hold on, let me see. FBI recordings are not as they seem either, and during the trial they will be explained, and they actually proved his innocence. He said investigators didn't realize that the undercover operation was an extortion on an extortion. The defense said Charlie confided in his mother about the alleged extortion. He didn't have the money to pay for it all, so he doled out the funds in installments. Adelson was told if he didn't pay Markel's murder, one of his family members would be next. He asked, "Who are these people?" She won't tell him. It's not safe for you to know. Magbanua told Charlie Adelson that a friend of hers shot Markel because she was talking too much and heard about the $1 million offer. Okay, so this is where they're going. You understand this now? They're saying now, wait a minute. He didn't hire these hitmen or anything like that. Not at all. This all came about because he was dating Katie Magbanua, whose baby daddy was Sigfrido Garcia. Sigfrido Garcia was upset about this, didn't like anybody dating his baby mama, and then he found out that Charlie Adelson and his family were going to pay Wendy $1 million, and then we were going to pay Dan $1 million to let Wendy move to Florida. And they allegedly traveled, okay, of all family members that they could have taken out, right, these people, if this was true, they traveled all the way to Tallahassee. And again, remember, they're going to have to travel there twice, which I don't even think the defense puts into this thing. But they travel all the way to Tallahassee to kill Dan Markel, allegedly, and then tell Charlie Adelson, if you don't pay up, we're going to kill more of your family members. This is what the defense wants us to believe now, okay? And that all the wiretap stuff is just about an extortion of an extortion. Yeah. You believe that? No. Okay, so the first witness was James Geiger, who's the Dan Markel's next door neighbor. He heard a gunshot wound. He went over to Markel's house because he just had an uneasy feeling. He saw the garage door open a little bit. He thought he was going to be pulling out. When he didn't pull out, he went back over, and he's the one that saw him bleeding, shot in the head, called 911. He said he was still alive. He was moving, but he was unresponsive. They played the 911 call, and Dan, made it to the hospital, and he died shortly after. Okay, and then they had investigators in crime scene. They had Joanne Maltese testify. She's from the forensic specialist. They were just talking about the car, how it was found, where was the gunshot. And then they had the medical examiner on, and she was talking about the injuries were not survivable. The gun must have been within inches of Dan Markel's face at the time he was shot. And then they started to talk that they had the FBI agent come on the stand, and the FBI agent, Pat Sanford, was the lead investigator on the case. And he testified that he worked with TPD on the case, and the prosecution asked him about the divorce filings. And he said, yes, he looked through it. It was a very, contentious divorce. During the divorce, Dan Markel asked the court to require that Donna Adelson, the mother-in-law, only have supervised visitation with his and Wendy's children, meaning that she would need to have another adult present. And the reason for that was because he said that she was making disparaging comments about him to his children, and that his children informed him that Grandma says you're stupid and that you're trying to take her sunshines away. He then talked about the Adelson Institute, which is the dental practice, and Katie Magmanua's alleged employment there. During Magmanua's retrial, her defense said she worked for the Adelson Institute and that's why she received funds from the Adelsons, but the state disputed that claim. When the FBI subpoenaed Magmanua's personal file from the family's dental practice, the only documents they received were checks that were addressed to her. There were no tax forms, applications, or other records of her employment. Okay. And then the FBI agent was cross-examined, and he told the defense attorney Rashbaum that the checks were addressed to Katie Magmanua. They were numbered consecutively, and the attorney asked if it looked like she received a stack of checks, and Sanford confirmed that he did, and said that Charlie Adelson is a big talker and he repeats himself. The FBI agent said Adelson is a big talker and repeats himself a lot, and that he listened to many of the defendant's phone calls. And he said that he heard Adelson talk on those calls about the $1 million offer. And then he asked him if he heard him talk about $1 million offer on all the phone calls that he heard. No, Sanford said no $1 million offer. The defense asked Sanford if he was aware of the plans that Wendy had in Tallahassee scheduled for after Dan Markel's murder. Some of them included looking into purchasing a home there, enrolling the kids in school in Tallahassee, and flying out of Tallahassee. But Sanford said he didn't know of any of Wendy's plans. Let's see. And then they asked him, do hitmen usually get paid over time? And how many hitmen cases he's worked with? And he said over time, no, not in those cases. But in your experience, do hitmen get paid before or after the crime? And Sanford said it depends on the case. Have you ever done an extortion case? And he said, yes, I have. How do people get paid in extortion cases? Mostly they get paid over time, Rashbaum asked, and the agent said they can. Okay, so then Wendy Adelson entered the courtroom, and she was on the stand, and we've talked in depth about that on the first day. But lots of stuff came out, including emails that her mother wrote that were just insane about converting the kids to Catholicism, dressing them as the Hitler Youth, anything to get Dan Markel to allow the kids to move to Miami. There was bribery, all kinds of things. And they said, oh, these are the names, your mother called Dan Markel. They included an a-hole, a narcissist, a religious zealot, and other expletives. And they went over that. Wendy told investigators that her family might be responsible for Dan's murder. And she said, yes, but I mentioned other people. I mentioned a former student or his current girlfriend. And then the prosecutor said, your family and your ex-husband killed to try to help you, didn't they? And she said, no, that's completely untrue. They asked Wendy if she thought her mother was controlling, and she said, I don't think she's controlling, but she's definitely overprotective. She asked Wendy if her mother, Donna, didn't want her to buy a house in Tallahassee, and she said, that's not true. My parents were looking to buy a house in Tallahassee. And she asked her if her parents were mad at Dan Markel at the time of his death. Okay, and let's see here. Whose decision was it to separate? They asked Wendy. Wendy said it was hers. Did you move out of the marital home when Dan Markel was away on a business trip? Yes, I did, she said. She confirmed that Markel did not know she was moving out when she left, and they brought in a thick binder of all of the couple's divorce filings. One of those documents was Wendy's request to relocate with the boys to Miami, which was denied. And the prosecutor asked if Wendy thought that the request would be granted when it was resubmitted. when she submitted that one, and she said, I thought there was a small chance that it would be successful, but not very likely. In the filing, Wendy cited moving near her family, and she said she wanted to. She had a good relationship with her parents. She said her mother, Donna, spends a lot of time with her and her two sons, and that Donna has a very loving relationship with the pair of boys. Let's see here. The prosecutors asked if Dan Markel owed Wendy money, and after a back and forth, she conceded yes, saying Dan Markel was not giving her half the sum of the house, as was agreed in the divorce settlement, and Wendy filed a motion to force her ex-husband to give her the money. Let's see. She couldn't remember some of the struggles with trying to buy a house in Tallahassee and the litigation between her and her ex-husband. She said it's been 10 years and a lot of terrible things have happened. She confirmed that her brother Charlie joked that he bought a TV for her as a divorce gift because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman. He did, in fact, buy her a TV, and that TV was, in fact, her alibi when Dan Markel was killed. Wendy said it had a crack in it. She didn't know what it could have been. Maybe one of her kids threw a toy at it. But when her boyfriend got on the stand yesterday, he's like, no kid threw a toy in it. The kids are like 3 and 4 years old. They didn't throw a toy at that. It looked like somebody just got right up there and punched it. That TV did not end up getting repaired, Wendy said, because she consulted with Charlie and determined the cost of the repair was too costly, considering the price of a new TV. Did you ever use the word TV as a code for murder? She asked. No, Wendy said. Did you ever hear your mom do that? No, Wendy said. The prosecutor asked about a dinner Wendy went to with her brother a few weeks after Dan Markel was killed and said, Wendy, did you throw up at that dinner? And asked if her brother said the meal was celebratory. She said, no, the dinner was the first time I left my house in over a month because I was terrified. So, but she vomits at the table at this dinner. And then the prosecutor said, were you involved in any way in a plot to kill your ex-husband? Is that why you went to the crime scene? Because she went past the crime scene allegedly on her way to the liquor store to get this bullet liquor that she was getting for this party where it was a stock your bar party. Wendy said she learned that day that her brother knew who killed her ex-husband. She didn't know until she was testifying at other trials, but claimed she didn't know about this. She disputed the prosecution's statement that she was not close with Charlie, and she said, I absolutely had a close relationship with my brother. Let's see. The defense asked Wendy about her childhood. Her family was middle class when she was growing up. She said her father lost his life savings when he fell a victim to investment fraud. Wendy said she's not a divorce lawyer. Her specialty is immigration law. She said she received full scholarships for all of her higher education. The state objected as Rashbaum submitted emails that Wendy sent as evidence, but it was overruled. The defense pointed to Wendy saying she wanted to legally move her children to South Florida in the messages. Again, Wendy disputes claims the defense made in opening statements. The defense made, not the prosecution. I'm sorry, I think I misspoke, about her and Charlie not being close, and said that they are very close. The defense said, is he kind of self-centered? She says, I don't think so. He had a lot going on in his life. She said, his life was going great. He had a great business, and he always had a lot of girls. Let's see. And then on day 2, she was back on the stand. And I'm trying to watch my time. I'm okay so far. Okay, so she was on the stand again, and the defense was still questioning her about plans that she made in 2014 after Dan's murder. Among those plans, were you slated to be a keynote speaker at Florida State Universities? Did you make plans to, when you went to a wedding in New Jersey, did you make your tickets to go back to Tallahassee? She said, yes, that's where I lived. And they went on with her ex-boyfriend, Jeffrey Lacasse. They discussed a dinner that she and Jeffrey had with Charlie and his then girlfriend, Catherine Magbanua. And they said, are you aware that Sigfrido Garcia was watching you at that dinner? Wendy said no. The defense said that Garcia was still in love with Katie Magbanua, and they said that Garcia's love for Katie made him hate Charlie Adelson. Are you aware that he was contemplating running your brother off the road during that dinner? No, Wendy said. And then the judge reads this school drop-off schedule between Wendy and Dan Markel. The defense and prosecution both agree the schedule is factual. Let's see. The defense attorney said, did Dan Markel post his travel plans on social media? And Wendy said, yes, on Facebook and his blog. Oh, let's see. Wendy said she had a good relationship with Dan's parents after his murder, and then in 2016 things changed because she said that she received word that Ruth Markel, Dan's mother, was looking to gain custody of the children if Wendy was arrested, and that she saw something that they would be placed in foster care if Wendy was arrested. And she said once she saw that, she was very upset. The defense attorney asked if Wendy attempted to erase Dan Markel from, hold on a second, from her son's lives, and she said no, absolutely not. She talked about having a picture in each boy's room over their bed, and that they say good morning and good night to him every day. Let's see. They talked about the TV warranty being under Harvey Adelson's name. Wendy confirmed that yes, she testified that her mother scheduled the TV repair and gave her a number to call back if Wendy needed to reschedule. Now, on day one, when Wendy's going over this with the prosecution about the hitman, repairman, was it the alibi, she messes up and says, yeah, well, I had to wait for the hit repairman. Okay, it was really, I think I put a clip of it. It went somewhere. I don't know where. Okay, so then Rauschbaum moved into Wendy's plans the day of the murder, in that she went to ABC Liquors on Benton Road to buy a bottle of bourbon, which was called Bullet Bourbon. She said, why did she go there? Because this brought her by the crime scene. She said she tried to take Trescott Drive to get to the store, which was the street her ex-husband lived on, but it was blocked off with crime scene tape. Wendy said she didn't know it was blocked off because Dan Markel was murdered. She said she was shocked when she heard of the shooting later that day. And Rauschbaum said, you were pretty open with the police, telling them a lot of things, right? She said, they kept telling me they needed my help. Isn't the first person you mentioned in the interview yourself, who could be someone that would have done this? Yes, she said. She testified that she would understand if police thought she was responsible. She agreed to be fingerprinted and checked for gunshot residue and gave authorities her computer and her phone to be searched. She said she spoke with her mother that evening around 7 p.m., but she didn't speak to Charlie until the next day. The defense said she spoke with him the next morning, but Wendy said she didn't remember the conversation. Her parents traveled to Tallahassee to be with her after the news of Markel's murder, and said that when they got there, you were scared and frantic, right? Yes, Wendy said. And that her father had slept in think in the yard or somewhere, because she was so frantic or scared that someone was going to come and kill her. Then the prosecutor began with the redirect, and she brought up all the plans that the defense talked about in Tallahassee and said they never happened. Correct? Correct, Wendy said. And she asked if Wendy was on a dating site while she was with her ex-boyfriend Jeffrey Lacasse, and she said she wasn't sure exactly. Maybe it's possible she wasn't sure. The prosecutor pushed if it was possible that she could have been on the dating site while they were still dating, and if he had a reason to be jealous. She said, I think he had some serious jealousy issues that may or may not be founded. And then on the custody arrangements with Dan Markel's parents, the prosecutor, Kappelman, asked what was wrong with Dan's mother trying to make arrangements for the children in the event of Wendy's arrest. And Wendy said, Ruth Markel was trying to put my children in foster care. And Kappelman said, well, that would only be if you were arrested. And she said, I wasn't going to be arrested for a crime I didn't commit. And do Dan's parents know whether you committed the crime or not? Kappelman asked. In 2016, when the first arrests were made in the case and things were still fresh, would they have known if you were going to be arrested? And Wendy said, that was 2 years after Danny's murder. I don't know what was going on. And the prosecutor moved on to the visitation between the kids and the Markels since Dan was killed. How many times have they visited Dan's parents since the murder? She said many. It would be too hard to count. How many times have they seen him in the last year? She said it's hard to count, but every time they've asked for it, we've arranged it. And then she questioned her, and Wendy clarified that they had come to an agreement after some tension when the Markels tried to put my kids in foster care. And let's see. Kappelman asked if the Markels seeing the children had been a big issue, but Wendy didn't say one way or the other. Let's see here. Okay. Then, she said, the prosecutor Kappelman said, are you angry that according to your brother's theory, he and your mom have known who killed your children's father in 2016? She said, I'm more angry that they killed my children's father. So you're not angry? I'm angry about so many things. It's hard to separate, Wendy said. Well, try. I'm confused. It's hard to process, Wendy said. The defense said Markel's hitman threatened to kill Charlie's family if he didn't pay them. She said Wendy would have been one of those people and asked if she was told of the threat. She said no. If Wendy had known, would you have made the decision to move to South Florida to be closer to the killers? No, I would not have. I found out yesterday. Yeah, I don't believe that at all. Okay. So crazy. Prosecution called TPD officer Bill Brannon then to the stand, and he responded to the scene of Dan Markel's murder. His patrol car was blocking Trescott that day, and they asked from the roadblock where you were positioned, could you see the crime scene? Yes, he said. She asked if it would be obvious to someone approaching him that law enforcement was at the Markel's house, and he said yes. The defense objected, and that was sustained. And then Jeffrey Lacasse, her ex-boyfriend, Wendy's ex-boyfriend, took the stand. And they asked the week of June 4th to June 9th if Wendy was acting strangely nervous. And he said she was a nervous wreck to the point where she was sick to her stomach. Officials learned later that the hitmen were in town at that time and part of the plan to murder Dan Markel, although he was not killed at that time. Kappelman asked if Wendy told him that hitmen were in town to kill her husband. Jeffrey said no. He said he remembered when Wendy's TV broke. And Wendy told him, or testified, that a kid threw a toy at the TV and broke the TV, but Lacasse said, I just don't see how the kids could have done something like that. He said it had to be something big and heavy and forceful that broke it. And he said he went out to dinner with Wendy, Charlie, and Catherine Magbanua before Dan Markel's murder. Magbanua mentioned at the meal that she had an ex-common law husband who had a criminal history. He said Charlie didn't seem concerned by this information, and they asked if Charlie had mentioned having connections to a criminal element, and Jeffrey said he mentioned having contacts on both sides of the tracks, and that he seemed to be bragging when he said that. Okay. Jeffrey Lacasse said he and Wendy had a big argument while they were away on a trip in Gainesville. He was with Wendy. He said at the time she was throwing herself at him and making significant promises, and even wanted her kids, said their kids should start calling him daddy and he should move in with her. But at the same time, he said Wendy was exhibiting some behavior that made him think she was seeing someone else. He said he felt he was being strung along, and all of that led to this argument. While they were together, Wendy told him the family was planning a big gift for her father Harvey's birthday. But he said he didn't know what the big gift was. During the testimony on Thursday, Wendy said she knew they celebrated her father Harvey's birthday weeks after Dan Markel's death, but she couldn't remember what gift he received. And the prosecutor asked Wendy if Dan Markel's death was that gift, and Wendy said no. Let's see. Then they had this big thing about double hearsay. They made the jury leave the room, and because they wanted to talk about the joke, apparently that wasn't a joke, but it wasn't a joke in July, right before Dan Markel's murder, that Wendy said to Jeffrey Lacasse, can I confide in you about something? And said that her brother was going to look into hiring a hitman to help her situation, and this is what it led to a big hullabaloo in the courtroom, and he was allowed to speak, but not in the presence of the jury. Okay. And then after that, Dan Markel's divorce lawyer testified. He was not really a divorce lawyer, but a friend of a friend. And he said that Dan Markel was a nice guy. He liked him a lot. He never actually was in court with Dan because Dan was murdered before that could happen. And he said that he heard Dan Markel told him that Donna, the mother-in-law, called him stupid on a Skype call to like, hey, stupid's on the phone, like in that context. He denied that Dan Markel's behavior was in conflict with the divorce settlement, and that, let's see, they didn't know about what contempt, and he said Wendy was the one who should have been held in contempt because she was not being truthful about her financial statements. And he said, I did feel like she should be held in contempt. She didn't disclose things in her financial affidavit, and at the end of the day, you could lose your law license over that. So yeah, it's pretty serious. And let's see, hang on a second. Okay, so now next, then they brought up her ex-girlfriend of Charlie's, which was June Shinda, And she took the stand and she said she still has feelings for him. He was her last serious boyfriend. There's something still there. I still care about him. They had an on-again, off-again relationship since 2016. And she says she has not spoken to him since he was arrested. And that was in April of 2022. They were together in 2016 when Donna Adelson had that bump where she was approached by an undercover FBI agent. And they asked, she said the relationship was very serious and she basically lived with him. A fairy tale, the prosecutor Kappelman asked. Yes, the girlfriend replied. Perfect. Yes, she said. Inseparable? Yes. Now, a reporter approached the girlfriend in 2016 in Charlie's driveway. The reporter thought she was Catherine, and this girlfriend told the reporter she didn't know who that was, and she found out about Katie Magmanua after. Let's see. She said that Charlie mentioned during the relationship that his former brother-in-law was murdered, but she said she didn't know the details. He told me he was shot and didn't know who did it. Let's see. Charlie's ex said she spoke with law enforcement about the case in 2018. She testified in court about that previously. In an interview with law enforcement, she told them she found out Charlie had been speaking frequently with Katie Magmanua and asked him why. And she said Charlie was always prepared to go away in case they came for him. The prosecutor said that, but the ex said it wasn't true. She asked how Charlie reacted to Magmanua's arrest, and she said, well, I guess his behavior was of someone who was being accused of murder. She said he was irritable, couldn't sleep, got a second phone call after her arrest. He acted crazy at times. Was he super stressed and very affected by the arrest of Catherine Magmanua? Yes, the ex-girlfriend said. And she said she also knew Charlie's mother, Donna Adelson, and said that Donna was also stressed after Katie Magmanua's arrest. She testified that Donna was very involved with her grandchildren, and she also knew Wendy. Did she make a comment to you that things were still hard for her even though Dan was gone? The girlfriend said yes. The witness recalled a time when Charlie told her he was arguing with Wendy about Dan's murder, and was Wendy not speaking to Charlie for some period of time because of something to do with this case? And the ex-girlfriend said yes, but she didn't know why or what had caused the problem that they weren't speaking. Okay, and then they had to clarify something with Wendy. They had to ask her a series of questions about Jeffrey Lacasse. She asked if she told her ex-boyfriend that she had something to tell him in confidence, and said she had to tell him that Charlie had explored all options to deal with Dan Markel, but Wendy denied all of those statements. Lacasse got up again to the stand, and he told the prosecution that Wendy told him in confidence that Charlie looked into hiring a hitman, but he wasn't sure whether the cost was $15,000 or $50,000. He said it was chilling, it was not a joke, it was scary, it made my stomach flip. And it was close to the end of their relationship. He said when he and Wendy went to yoga together, he said she was cold to him and he thought it was over, but then when they went to go, her tone changed. Under the prosecutor's questioning, he said Wendy asked him lots of questions about his plans for that Friday, which was the 18th, the day of Markel's murder. And according to Lacasse, he told her that he would be leaving town on a trip to Tennessee. And he said he told Wendy the details of those plans. And after more questioning, he said that he would have driven past Markel's home at the time of the murder in a similar vehicle to the one the hitman used. He told the prosecutor and the jury the other time he went out of town that spring when the hitman had traveled close to Tallahassee, in their first attempt to kill Dan Markel, which didn't end up happening. Really, I took 2 trips during the spring outside of Tallahassee, and both times they tried to kill Dan Markel. And so that she said, was she trying to use you, and he's like, maybe, to look like, to put him as a suspect. And then the defense said, you believe that Wendy Adelson tried to frame you for Dan Markel's murder, don't you? He said, I'm suspicious. The defense attorney, Rashbaum, asked if Wendy told him that Charlie had looked into hiring a hitman a week before they broke up, and he said it wasn't exactly a week after that, he said. The defense questioned that she would tell him, why would she tell him such a big secret right before she broke up with him? And he said, well, she had a habit of blurting things out in her own self-interest. The defense questioned Lacasse about how he told police after the murders that he was worried Wendy was involved, but he also told them it was uncomfortable to discuss. He said, I was still under her spell at that point. I didn't want, her to be guilty of this. I would say I was fairly pathetic at that point. Months later, he told police of a dinner he heard Wendy attended with her brother where Wendy vomited, and Jeffrey called the dinner a celebratory dinner and said that Wendy told him Charlie called it that. Wendy testified earlier that she did vomit during the dinner with her brother, but she denies that it was a celebratory dinner. If you knew Charlie had previously talked about hiring a hitman and then he had a celebratory dinner after Markel's murder, why didn't you go to the authorities? Rashbaum asked. He said, I didn't come in right away because I was scared of your client. I was scared of the repercussions. Rashbaum questioned why he decided to speak months later. He said, I decided to man up. Okay, and then a former friend of Charlie's took the stand, and he got up and he said, defense attorney said, his name is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and said they were close into 2018 when they had a falling out. Fitzpatrick testified that Charlie was close to Wendy. He said that Charlie Adelson was not fond of Dan Markel. Did he ever make a statement to you about murder? The cavalman asked the prosecutor. The friend said that Adelson had a dark sense of humor. He said yes and recalled what Charlie told him. And this is a quote from his testimony. You can get away with anything. You can get away with murder if you keep your mouth shut. Charlie filed a lawsuit against Fitzpatrick in 2018, and they are no longer friends. Kappelman questioned if he dislikes Charlie now. He said, I'm not a big fan, no. Are you here to bring him down? No, I don't want to be here at all, Fitzpatrick said. The prosecutor asked him if he is here pursuant to a subpoena, and he said yes. Okay, then the defense got to cross-examine the friend and said, Charlie talks a lot, right? Yes, the former friend answers. Repeats himself a lot? Yes, sir. Under the defense's questioning, the friend testified that it became public knowledge in 2016 that authorities sought to arrest Charlie, but it didn't come to fruition at the time, and then they moved into why Charlie was filing a lawsuit against Fitzpatrick. Isn't it true that you stole from Charlie? No, not at all. Rashbaum says you stole checks from Charlie, but the witness said that case was dismissed, and the defense attorney began reading messages that Fitzpatrick sent Charlie after the lawsuit. He said, here are the messages that you sent. Did you indeed send these to Charlie? I don't know, you shite. You open your mouth and I'll open mine. I dare you to threaten me again. I'll be on the phone with the FBI before you blink, you murderer. Rashbaum asked if the case against Fitzpatrick was dismissed because Charlie was arrested, and the former friend said he didn't know. He found out last week. Okay, and then it ended with Luis Rivera on the stand. Okay, again, Luis Rivera is the one of the hitmen, but not the one that pulled the trigger. And he's the one that's testifying in return for a 19-year sentence. So let me get over here. So the prosecutor was asking Rivera about a sentence he's serving on federal racketeering charges to a gang. He was with the Latin Kings. And he is serving his sentence for his part in Dan Markel's murder concurrently with the federal charges. He became a part of the plot to kill Dan Markel because of his friendship with Sigfrido Garcia. Again, that's the baby daddy to Magbanua. Oh gosh, we're late for our auction, so I'm going to finish. This is going to be done in a minute. He said his motive to kill Dan Markel was money, and he didn't know Dan Markel. So, am I correct that Katie hired Sigfrido Garcia and Garcia hired you? Yes, ma'am, he said. Do you know where she got the money? He said, yeah, from the people. Who are the people? The dentist. I called him the dentist. Rivera said the people referred to Wendy and Charlie Adelson. He said the motive for the dentist was for the kids, to get the kids back. It had something to do with getting Wendy's kids. The prosecutor said, yes, ma'am, Rivera said. Rivera said he didn't know and had never met the dentist personally. His connection was that he, the dentist, was Katie Magbanua's boyfriend. On the drive up to Tallahassee, he learned the payment for the hit was $100,000. He said it was split 3 ways between himself, Garcia, and Magbanua. It wasn't connected at all to a gang that he was a part of. Rivera said Garcia and him drove to Tallahassee from South Florida, and Rivera drove back down after the murder. He said they knew how to get to Dan Markel's house because Sigfrido had a piece of paper and a picture of Dan Markel. He said they did not get the information from a blog or Facebook. Rivera said the plan, as he remembers, was Sigfrido Garcia was supposed to shoot Dan Markel, but it would not happen if the kids were there. On the way up to Tallahassee, Rivera suggested a change of plans. I said, let's go back and rob the lady. He told the prosecutor the lady was Wendy because he believed she was the one with the money to pay for the hit. But Sigfrido Garcia pushed back, and Garcia said no, they had a job to get done. It had to be done for Katie. And Rivera said yes. Let's see here. Prosecutor tells Rivera the defense's claim that Rivera, Garcia, and Magbanua came up with the plan for the murder on their own. Did you kill him and then try to get Katie to blackmail the dentist? No, he said, shaking his head. Would you have been just as happy to rob the dentist? Absolutely, he said. Would it have been less trouble than coming to Tallahassee? Yes, ma'am. And then they're going to have the cross-examination on Monday. But we have to get to the auction, so I have to get back. I have to end this and come right back. So let's see. And I didn't even put the auction out there. So I hope that you're going to come and follow us over to the auction.